Here's 6 things that I learned from being in Quantum Mastermind for 2 years. And if you stay till the end, the last lesson is one I actually learned by disagreeing with Sam himself. So if you don't know what Quantum Mastermind is, it's a mastermind with 99 different entrepreneurs all inside the e-learning space, making anywhere from $3,000 to $4 million a month. And if you look at the industry, pretty much every single person who's made millions of dollars inside the space, like Iman Gadzhi, Alex Becker, Dan Henry, and so on, have all came from or been a part of this mastermind at some point. So here's the 6 lessons I learned from being there for over 2 years. And during that 2 years, growing my revenue from $60,000 up to $200,000 and a little bit more than that per month. So lesson number 1, profit is greater than revenue. So as I said, I grew my revenue by basically 4 times while being a quantum. But during that period, I learned this very important lesson that so many people prioritize and idolize revenue so much when it really does nothing for you. It's just an ego number, right? It allows you to have a bigger Stripe account that can say, look, I made this amount of money. But at the end of the day, a lot of people grow their revenue at the expense of profit, not to grow their profit. And this is a lesson that I learned because Sam realized this about himself, right? He had built consulting.com up to $36 million a year in revenue, but was only profiting about 3, right? So he's making $36 million a year in revenue with a lot of employees, a big office, a lot of products, just a lot of stuff. And his revenue got big, but his profit was diminishing, right? And what he did was he was able to scale back his revenue down to $10 million a year, cut employees, cut a lot of the kind of excess fat on the business, lean it down, and make over $3 million a year in profit. I think it was like $4 or $5 million a year in profit on $10 million in revenue. So this taught me to prioritize profit over revenue, because at the end of the day, a healthy business has a lot of profit, not always a lot of revenue. Lesson number 2, simplicity is better. So Sam always says less is more, right? And if you look at Sam's life over the past few years, he has pretty much less of everything besides hair, right? He's grown his hair out, but everything else he has less of. His website is smaller, he has less products, he has less employees. The business is just simpler, right? And he read a book on this called Think Simple that I read as well. It's very, very good. And this is just one of the core things that he started to adopt over the past few years. That was one of the big lessons for me. So now when I'm adding something to my business, I ask the question, do I need this, right? Like, what is the purpose that this solves? And that allows me to make a lot better decisions and just think about things more and strip down the things that don't really matter. So simplicity is better. Ask the question, do I really need this? So the 3rd lesson I learned was to ask why. Now, if you ask anybody inside of Quantum, this is probably one of the most frustrating things about being inside of Quantum. And it's that when you bring Sam a question, more often than not, he is going to answer your question with a question, at least at first. But when I joined Quantum, I was a little bit nervous. I had seen Sam on YouTube. I had been watching him and really learned a lot from him, from his courses and different things, but I never talked to him. And when I joined and I bring these questions to him, it was pretty frustrating because I was like, man, I'm bringing these questions to you and I feel like kind of an idiot because I'm like, here's this long question. I just spent 2 minutes describing what's going on. And he responds with, well, what's the question? But what it taught me over the 2 years was that a lot of times when I had a problem in my business, when I had something that I was going through, a concern I had, or just I didn't know what to do, a lot of times I was not clear. I hadn't spent enough time thinking about what the question was, what my problem was, what the goal was. I hadn't spent enough time just thinking and asking the question, why, right? And just all the different ways that you could. So when you bring something to Sam, he can sniff it immediately that you don't know enough about your problem. You don't know enough about your question. You don't understand it well enough yet. And now a lot of times I can think about a question, I can think about a problem in my business, and without even asking Sam, I can know what he's going to say, because I spent so much time asking him these different questions. So I've just learned the way he thinks, and he thinks at a much higher level than most people do, right? Most business owners do. And it's what I think allows him to be very, very successful, is the way he asks questions to himself and the way he thinks about things. So it's just an interesting thing to think about, that he spends so much time asking questions and just thinking and coming up with good solutions. So that's lesson number 3. Lesson number 4 is, what's the goal? So this came from 2020, where we had scaled our business, right? We were at $60,000, $70,000 a month in revenue. We had been at 30 for a long time, and I was feeling pretty good, right? We were profiting a decent amount. Everything was, healthy, it seemed like. But the one problem I had was I would show up to the office every day and I would do the things I needed to do. I would update the spreadsheets for ads, I would send an email maybe, I would talk with the team, check my email, and then that was it. I had worked for an hour and I just didn't know what else to do. We had scaled, we had done these things that I had been working on for so long, but I didn't know what else to do. So I bring this question to Sam at one of the ends of one of the quantum events. And he immediately, I think his first question was, so what's your goal? Right? I tell him all this stuff. I want to scale, but I kind of feel like I don't really know what to do. So he said, what's your goal? And I was like, well, I want to get to 100K a month. And he's like, well, why? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, because it's 40 or 30 more $1,000 a month. Like, that sounds cool. He's like, but why do you want that? And I didn't know. And he was like, exactly, this is your problem. You don't know where you want to go or why you want to go there. So you don't know what to do today, right? Like if you listen to Tony Robbins, he talks about like, if the pain of staying where you're at is more than the pain of the action it's going to take to get to where you want to go, then you'll move. But if the pain of the action of getting to where you want to go is less than or is greater than the pain of staying where you're at, then you'll just stay because it's just a question of pain. So I wasn't clear on what I wanted, thus the pain of staying was like nothing. Like I was like, I'm fine, right? But Sam's homework to me was to ask a lot of questions and to kind of dig deep, like what did I want? Why did I want to grow the business? What did I care about, right? But to do that and to kind of just figure out, okay, what do I want? And then to get clear on those things. So I spent a few weeks thinking about that and it helped dramatically. All of a sudden, I knew where I wanted to go and I was able to get there. There's this proverb in the Bible that says, without a vision, the people will perish. I might be paraphrasing that a little bit, but that's what happened. I was perishing because I had no vision. I didn't know where I wanted to go, right? I had got to where I wanted to go. And that was a very important question. So a lot of times now, if I'm struggling on clarity, I ask the question, what is the goal, right? And most of the time, when I'm struggling in business, it's because I'm not clear on that one thing, or I don't remind myself of that one thing. So what is the goal? That's lesson number 4. Lesson number 5 is to do a daily stand-up meeting. So this one's a lot more tactical. If you're hoping for that, it's a daily stand-up meeting with your team. So this is something we introduced at the beginning of 2021, which in that year, we kind of went from doing $60,000, $70,000 a month up to over $200,000 a month. And a lot of that was due to the fact that we spent a lot more time in our sales meeting. So I can't give Sam all the credit for this because he did introduce it to me, but who really pushed me forward to do it and gave me the framework to do it was Cole Gordon. So he talks about this, he calls it his daily BOD meeting, meaning beginning of day meeting. And this meeting just helped us stay aligned, stay accountable, and be able to adjust every day for the month, right? So we'd set a projection in the beginning of the month. Like we want to hit $150,000 this month, right? And then every day we're looking at our pace. Are we on pace? Yes or no? And we could adjust accordingly, and that allowed us to scale a lot quicker. So the daily stand-up meeting was something we introduced that helped us a ton. That's lesson number 5. Now, lesson number 6 is the one I learned by kind of disagreeing with Sam. So this is something that I think Sam has kind of swung back and forth on a little bit, and I've kind of watched it happen. But Sam is very notorious on saying no to things, right? Aggressive elimination, just removing things out of your business. Again, simplicity, right? You don't need more to do what you need to do, right? And I agree with that. But where I don't agree with is kind of this idea that there's always a cost of saying no, right? So I think a lot of times the answer is to say no in business, right? Like there's a new opportunity that you don't need to hit your goals. So why say yes to it, right? But you have to understand that yes, there's always a cost of saying yes to something, more complexity and less focus on what you're currently doing. But there's also always a cost of saying no. So your job as the business owner is to figure out, is the cost of saying no greater or less than the cost of saying yes? Because if the opportunity cost of saying no far surpasses the opportunity cost of continuing down the road you're on, well, then you should say yes to it because that opportunity is worth it for that, right? But I know Sam agrees with this. I just think sometimes it gets overemphasized, just saying no, saying no, saying no, saying no. I think sometimes you just need to think more about it and not be afraid to say yes to something. But there is something that I learned from Sam that I'll give you as a bonus right now. And this goes along with lesson number 6 perfectly. So Sam says that he'll sit and think about something he wants to do for 30 days And if at the end of the 30 days he still wants to do it, then he does it. So I think that is an important lesson, that there is always a cost to saying no. But in the beginning, when an opportunity comes up, it can seem so good, but that's just because it's new. So if you let that sit for a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever time works for you, you can allow yourself to filter through that. Sitting on these things allows you to measure them more logically rather than based on emotion. So those are the 6 lessons I learned from being in quantum. If you are debating being in quantum, I would do it. It's a great mastermind with a lot of great people. You'll meet a lot of great people and learn a lot of great lessons. And I'm confident you can scale your business from being inside that room. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, here's another one that I think you might enjoy as well. And I'll see you guys on the next video.